Hello and welcome to Janet's Craft Corner. Today we're going to be making the Valentine's Gift Card Tags. Now these are a pretty simple little paint. The first thing we're going to do is separate our things by color, as we always do. These here are red, that's light blue, that's light pink, these are white, this is mint green, this is lavender, and this is, we're going to do a scrapbook technique on this. So we're going to do two different special techniques in this. We're going to do a scrapbook technique here, and we're going to do a stencil technique here. These four pieces do not need to be painted. So these four we're just going to set aside. And I'm not even staining them because in this situation they are going to be on the back and I want to be able to write to and from on this. So that's why I'm not even going to stain them. So we're going to start up here with our red. Let's start by putting a little bit on this. The hardest part here, you always want to go from the inside to the outside. So you're always moving off of your piece, but when you're up here along this edge, that's hard because there's a circle up there. That's, I'm trying to go off that edge up there, but then I end up going on the edge of the circle. And so all you really can do is once you've got it kind of done, once we're done with painting this coat on, we'll go back in and we'll use our wet wipe and try to clean that out a little bit. But I've got a pretty good thick coat on here, so I'm actually going to kind of do a trick here and just use this for because these are all just going to be sponge paintings. So I'm just going to take my sponge and go along here and pull some of this off and put it over here. In sponge painting, you always want to kind of keep your hand going pretty quickly. You really don't want a lot of paint on your sponge. I normally would probably offload this a little more than I am, but these are pretty simple, so they'll be okay with the extra. I can spread the extra paint out without much trouble. If you were doing little letters or something, it would probably fill in pretty bad, but these are going to be fine like this. Okay, so see, that wasn't hard at all. We used up a little bit of our extra paint over there. We still have a pretty thick layer of paint. So I'm going to smooth it out again, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to try to move some of it off or not. If you get too much paint when you're doing something like this, you can move it off by just, moving your brush across it and loading it onto your brush and then putting it on your palette. But I think I'm going to be okay here. It's a little on the thick side, but I think it'll be okay. Okay, I'm not going to do my brush yet because I want to make sure that I get that cleaned out up there and I don't end up accidentally messing up the painted part. And I'm taking a wet wipe, but I'm kind of tearing it in strips here, as you can kind of see as I pulled it out. And I'm going to pick this up, and this is kind of tricky because it's wet, but I want to get it while it's wet. So we're just going to pick it up like this, and I'm going to load this in from the back. And just take an edge and try to kind of make a little point on my edge here. And just kind of rub around that inside of that circle. It's not extremely important that the inside of our circle be perfect, but we don't want clumps on it. And then while I've got this up, I'm just going to check my outside edges, and I did pretty good. I got a little bit on this one, so rather than having to trim it later, I'm just going to see if I can't wipe it off with that. There we go. That worked well. Okay, then put this back down there to dry. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do is paint our pink. And I like, there's not much of any of these. This is I'm doing this as part of giving this to the members of Crafted by You as a kind of a free gift. One of the things we do in Crafted by You is I give you, in addition to our main project each month, I usually give you a free small project. And we don't do that one in the monthly meeting, but you have all the parts and pieces to do it. And this is their free product for the month of January. We need to let that dry completely before we can do our stenciling, so that's why we're doing everything else first. The rest of this is all sponge painting except for the Mod Podge for the scrapbook. So that's all I'm doing, sponge painting these little pieces. And when you sponge paint, you always want to offload as much as possible. Like I said, with the red, it wasn't that important. With some of the other colors, it'll be really important because they'll go down on the edges, and we don't want that to show. So, and then you want to keep your pressure really, really light as you go up and down here. You are better off doing several really light coats than one semi-thick coat, because they will go down the edges if you do too thick a coat. And then I think I'm going to do one set of these in a kind of a minty green. Now these are basically meant to represent those little hearts that you get during this time of year. Kind of pretty much pure sugar. That have the little sayings on them. Sponge painting, you want to use that whenever you're worrying about your edges, because you can't clean or touch up your edges, which would be like if you were if they were letters or something, small letters. These we could clean and touch up our edges, but you also want to use the sponge painting when you have engraving that you want to show through. Because if you don't use sponge painting, it will get filled in almost always. But with the sponge painting, it's staying really nice and clear, and so I'm not going to have to use an X-Acto knife to clean that out. An X-Acto knife or a toothpick will usually work pretty good to clean them out if you get too much paint in them, but you really want to try not to get too much paint in them. Okay. And when you do the sponge painting correctly, it will not fill down in those crevices. But again, you want to keep very little paint on your sponge. You want to offload it as much as possible on your palette. And you want to make sure you're doing a very light pressure touch on it. And if you have to go back over it 2 or 3 times, that's fine. That's better than having to clean up the edges or having to clean out the engravings. And I've only done 1 coat on these, and I think that's probably going to be pretty good. I'm going to kind of go back over and touch up a couple little spots where I just didn't get it good in a spot. But overall, that's pretty good. So, it covers pretty good. You don't have to worry about your coverage too much. With the lighter colors, you're more likely to need multiple coats, but I ended up doing a full coat there. I'm sure you noticed that. It just was easier than looking at it really hard and trying to figure out what was going on. So it just works. And then last but not least, I'm going to do some lavender ones here. I take my sponges. These are just standard makeup sponges, but I take and cut them up into quarters. Sometimes a little less. Sometimes I'll cut them up even into like sixths. Because you don't need very much of a sponge. You very seldom need a big wide surface. You usually need a very small surface, and that way you get a whole lot of extra usage out of each one. Some people do it where they just trim them off let them dry after they use them and then trim them off. I do that on these, usually 1 time, because I've made them smaller, so you can't do it much more than 1 time, but I usually do it 1 time on each sponge. But they're really cheap, which is nice, but I like to be as cost effective as possible. So I use mine up pretty good. Okay, that's all of the paintings. I'm going to close these up so I don't spill them, because I know me, I'll hit it and it'll go flying and we'll have paint everywhere. There we go. Okay, now then, we're going to do 2 different types of techniques on these to give them a little more pizzazz, I guess. First is we're going to do scrapbook paper on this one. I've already taped it down. I shouldn't have. I should have waited until I'd done this part. So when you're doing scrapbook paper, you're going to use Mod Podge to attach it. I use the matte. I always use the matte, but you can use whatever one you want. And then you're going to take and turn your scrapbook paper face down and turn your piece face down. And then we're just going to trace around our piece with a pencil. In this case, we have that hole in the middle, and we're not going to worry about it. We'll punch it out after the fact. We'll use a stylus, and we'll punch it out after the fact. And then we're going to use this to cut this piece then out, just standard scissors. Cut our piece out on the lines that we made. And you can cut just inside those lines, or you can cut just outside them, because we're going to use a sanding block afterwards to trim off, kind of clean up the edges. You'll find that it's never perfect. I've even tried cutting them on the Cricut so that the cut is actually the exact same as the one that we had on from the laser, and it's never perfect. So we're just going to go with this. A nice little manual way. And then once you have your piece, there are actually two ways to do this. There's the heat method and the wet method. So the heat method, you have to paint it with Mod Podge earlier and then completely let that piece dry. And then you can use an iron without steam. I have a little bitty one that I got, a little craft iron that I got at Walmart, I think. Or you can use a heat press if you have. Okay, so then the wet method, we're going to paint our Mod Podge on here. Paint a pretty good layer on, and you want to do this pretty quickly because you're going to try to you want it to stay wet, so do it as quickly as possible. If you've got a very large piece, you probably want to do it in sections. Actually, if you've got a very large piece, I would recommend doing the heat method. I like the heat method better because you have no chance of getting wrinkles in your paper when you put it on here. When you use the wet method, there is that chance, and I'm a little bit too much of a perfectionist for that, and I know. I tell you regularly, crafting is not a perfect thing. Don't worry about it, but I'm too much of a perfectionist for that. Okay, and then I want to get that off of there. I don't want it off the edge like that. Okay, so there's my Mod Podge just painted on, and then I'm just going to take my piece and I'm going to lay it on there, and you can slide it around a little bit, but you want to do as little sliding as possible because the more you slide, the more the wet it gets on it and the more likely it is to wrinkle up. And just line it up and let it sit there and dry. We will let that dry and come back to that in a minute. In the interim, we're going to work on this piece. Make sure that this is 90% dry at least. Okay. And we're going to use a stencil on this one. So I'm going to put white hearts all over it. So I'm going to open my white back up and get my white sponge back out here. This kit, I'm including the heart stencil with it. So you get the stencil. It comes with your kit. I'm just cutting these on my Cricut so that they're nothing fancy. But you get the heart stencil with it, and you can put them on there at an angle, or you can actually, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll put them on at an angle. I think I'll put mine on at an angle. The more I think about it, I just think I like that idea. Okay, and then I suggest you try to tape it down. In this case, I don't have an edge where I can tape it down. So I'm just going to hold and do half at a time. And then we're just going to use a stencil. And you want to go, again, you keep it somewhat, and this is not going to work because it's not going to be held down. You want to use your stencil, and you want to do it, keep going straight up and down so that you get your pattern to appear the way it's supposed to appear, not it doesn't slide on you. If you don't go up and down, it'll slide on you a little bit, and it'll be more likely to seep in around the edges. And again, you want to offload it as much as possible because the more paint you have, the more likely it is to seep in around the edges. If I had thought ahead, I would have probably cut this down a little bit so that I had an edge to tape on. But I'm managing. I would suggest you do that if you're going to do this. Cut an edge so that it's flat across that edge, and you can tape that section down so that you don't have to hold it as tight as I'm having to hold it. These stencils can be reused, and there's two ways to do that. Number one is the simple way. You just let them dry, and unless you have clumps of paint on it, and you won't have if you've used the sponge on it, then it'll dry fine, and you can just use it the next time exactly as is. If you feel like you got it too clumped, or you don't like the idea of using it over with paint on it, then wash it off. But the sooner you wash it off, the better, because as soon as the paint dries, it's going to be hard to get off of it, because it's a thin material and you don't want to tear it while you're trying to get the paint off of it. That's why I don't usually try. If you do it immediately, it's not too bad on the cleanup, but I really don't generally try at all, because it's just not, I don't know, not worth the trouble. Since I don't have a corner taped here, I'm trying to work my finger off the edge without getting it, not too much trouble, without leaving a heart. And I've got one right under my finger, so I've got my finger on one heart right now. And I'm gonna lift that finger up, and I don't know, I'm gonna try to put it like maybe here. It's enough to hold that there. I'll do that one little heart. Okay. And you want to try not to move it while you're doing it. And I got a little mark from my nail there that I'm trying to cover up, where I let my nail touch down on the part that was done. And you can go back over it, but I think they're nice when they're not all perfect. Yes, I'm a perfectionist, but they don't need to be perfect. And then just gently pick your stencil up, and looky there. Isn't that cute? Okay, so now back to our piece that we put the Mod Podge on. And Mod Podge dries just as quickly as all the acrylic paint, so it should probably be dry right now, hopefully. Let's lay this off to the side here and take this piece up and off. And when you do this, remember you traced outside the edge, so you've got an edge. You see that clearly? You've got an edge there that sticks out. And the way you solve that is you kind of give it a country, what I call it a country edge. You're going to just use your sanding block or a piece of sanding paper, and just come off the edge, and it's going to leave it'll break that off really simply, and it roughs up your edge just a little bit so that it's not quite a perfect edge, and so that the places where it's totally not perfect don't show, because none of it's absolutely perfect. And you'll find that one side is probably worse than the other because you never get it equally placed. That's okay, because by doing it this way, you're going to get it perfect. You can get, if you're really careful, you can cut it almost perfect, but I've found with that you never get it just right, and so you always end up with a little bit of an edge somewhere, and you don't have enough paper to adjust. This way you get the paper on so that it's really centered, and then just take off your edges and kind of and you can rough up the edges as much or as little as you want. I like mine a little rougher than they've come out there, so I'm kind of ruffling back over. And then you're just going to make sure you dust this off, because if you don't dust it off, it's going to end up being, as I told you, probably can't see. You see that little nick in it where it tore slightly? When you do the wet method, that's kind of a problem you run into. Okay, so now then, let me clean up just a little bit. I got this nifty little sweeper that's supposed to do this here, so let's see. Got this off of Amazon because I'm always doing this, do something like that, and it's like, oh, now I have a mess that I can't, and I don't want to glue if that, all that should be picked up there, so I gotta do something kind of nice. It's the first time I've used it. Just got it. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these on here. Thanks. We'll put our hearts on, and then we're gonna put our backs on. Okay, so the red bordered ones go on in my case, they go in here. You can do them in whatever colors you want. Oops, I forgot to poke my hole out. Okay, so I'm just going to use a stylus. It's not sharp. It's the kind I use to do holes with, and just point it till I get enough to pull it out. And then I'm going to get me a piece of, it's a very small piece of sandpaper to try to push down through there. This is going to get a rim on it, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know what my knife will do here. That would help me a little bit. Oh, this is going to, yeah, this is going to work really well. An X-Acto knife works a little better there. Just make sure you don't pull it off too much as you're going around, because I poked it so I've got little edges. So I need to make sure I don't get... But if I hadn't poked it through like that, I would have been perfect off. If I just used my X-Acto knife, it would have been perfect. But this will work. I'll clean up my mess here. Just kind of open that hole back up, so because you're gonna if you're putting this like on the as a tag on a gift or something, you're gonna want to be able to put some ribbon on it. If this is all you're giving them because you're giving them a gift card, then you can decide whether you want the ribbon or the cord on it. But you do it whichever way you want. And if you're giving them a gift card, obviously just use the gift card back that's included, which we're going to show you how to glue on. If you're not including a gift card, don't include the gift card back. Just kind of leave the back off so that they don't think that they didn't get something they were supposed to get. And remember, this can be a little rough along that edge because it has a piece that goes over it. Okay, so the red pieces go on the... I like that much better than trying to sand that hole out. Okie doke. The red hearts go on the scrapbook paper in this case. The way I did them, the red hearts go on the... And you could have done these in totally different colors than I did. It's totally up to you what colors you use. Maybe like that. That's not bad. So I'm just going to glue these pieces. I am using, it is Art Glitter Designer Dries Clear Adhesive. It's I get mine from either Hobby Lobby or Amazon. They have it both places. And there you go, you can see it clearly. It comes in like an 8-ounce bottle like this. You can get it, I think, in a 2-ounce and 8-ounce, maybe even a 16-ounce. The 8-ounce, if you buy it from Amazon, there's a package that has these little bitty bottles, or you can buy the bottles separately anywhere else. And so it's really hard to use if you don't have these little tips on it. And so I just take my bottle and fill up my big bottle and fill up several little bottles, and I keep several around at a time. And then when they get empty, I just fill up some more. And then you're just going to put glue on the back of each. It's not hard. It's a good glue. It will give you a little bit of movement room. On the paper, you're going to want to move less, but it does give you a little bit of wiggle room. It doesn't dry quite instantaneously like super glue does, but it dries very securely. And I'm going to put the outside edges on first. Probably doesn't really matter which way you go, except you got to make sure you leave enough room for your outside edges. So I choose to go with my outside edges first. And then just get you one of these. There's 3 different sayings on here, so I just get one of each saying. Until you've done that. Oops, and that. Okay. And then just pop them in the middle. And you don't need very much glue. This is not, you don't need a lot. So just a little bit of ring around it and then pop them in the middle there. They are a little tight, but that's okay. You don't want a bunch of space between them. Just make sure you get them lined up and set that one aside and let those dry real quick so I can do the back. And while that's going, I'm going to do the front. This one, again, I'm going to put got a little bit of that dust from that other one on there, so I'm cleaning that dust off. There we go. Okay, and then, the top, we did this just as kind of decorating your hole, I guess. I don't know. Closing off that hole up there. Do them just like that. So we're going to, again, just a little bit of glue around the edges. And then again, I'm just going to stick my hearts in the middle. It doesn't, you know, there's not any right or rhyme or reason to what ones I'm doing where. I'm just putting them in there. I did make sure that I had the different words on each one of these so that, you know, it doesn't have cutie on here twice. One of the cuties is on that one and one of the cuties on this one. When you order this product, you get a set of 2, the pieces for a set of 2, and you do get the stencil. So that you can do this stencil. You do not get scrapbook paper with it. You'd have to go buy your own for that. And this one ought to be dry at this point. Yep, so we're going to turn it over face down. And the assembly on these is actually really simple, except that people just look at them and go, how in the world? So you first of all take this piece that has an opening on it, and you put it on your back. And you want to put it down as close as possible to the bottom. I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's made to sit on the bottom and across the sides. It's made to line up everywhere. And then again, you don't want to get too much glue on this, but you're going to bring your glue this way and do it around this edge. And that's going to hold this piece, which goes on like this. And it is important that you put this piece on the correct direction. That's not the correct direction. So you do want to make sure you don't have extra glue on there, because you don't want the gift card to stick in there. The pieces are a little wider than they all are tall, so make sure you're going the right way. Do it like that. And I probably should have grabbed a credit card so I could show you this, but that's okay. You can probably see that creates a little pocket right here that you're going to slide your card down into, the gift card that you're giving them down into. And then you can just write a little note to and from and whatever here. If you write right on this wood, it's not a problem. And you've got a cute little tag to give them with a gift in it. And they can hang the tag wherever they want or use it to decorate their home, whatever. And so we have 2 of those in the set. And that's all there is to it. Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe below and click the bell so that you get the notifications. And join us again the next time we do a video on